Good morning and happy Thursday, everyone. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and you're watching The Today Show here on the Disability Channel, streaming live right now on my personal Facebook page, Laurie Davis, Self-Worth, the Missing Link Superstars Facebook page, YouTube channel, Laurie Davis Show Host, the Disability Channel, Your Home TV. We're going to have to take extra time on the show to share all the platforms soon enough. My goodness, it's just amazing. So Thursday, today's theme, of course, is VIP, very important people, when we feature news and stories and information for our Indigenous community, our veterans community, our disabled community. and that's what we're up to today. So I invited Nadzin DeGagne, and she's becoming a regular. If you've been watching the shows, she's amazing on the air. She's a natural. So with her background as a youth care worker in and out of the justice system, I thought it would be really fun for her today to share some of the work she's done with youth across the board. And she did that for 17 years. Can you imagine? It took 17 years to burn out, I'm going to ask her. All right. Also, too, in my background, this weekend coming up is our quarterly Recovery and Performance Summit. And we have 18 amazing speakers coming up to share their recovery stories. It's online. If you want a ticket, you can get a ticket. You see my text or phone up there in the right-hand corner. The tickets are $25. And that's for all 3 days. You can come in and listen to one speaker, all of the speakers. And also, we have lots of great giveaways. Every speaker has donated a gift. And so we'll be drawing for a gift after each speaker. So there's just tons of stuff going on for all of us. And our show is growing. And if you listened in yesterday to Wellness Wednesday, let me just review what we do. On Mondays, we do self-care, self-help, self-worth. Tuesday, finance with Ramin Modiri, always giving out great financial tips to help us get our finances in order. Wednesday is wellness. And if you missed yesterday's show, Doug Smith and I did a show on just across the board wellness and some of the things that are going on for people and some things we can do. And today, of course, is our VIP. And Friday is our up in the air author, celebrities, athletes. But tomorrow I won't be here, but our founder, Jay Stoyan, will be here with an amazing guest. And you'll be able to have the show. But while he's doing that, I'll be on the summit welcoming our friends and guests. So, all right. The only other thing I'd like to share is that we do have an opportunity for advertising, sponsorships, donations. And if you go to the disabilitychannel.ca website, you can see a donation button there. We're a nonprofit organization that builds employment platforms for veterans and the disabled community. So it's a really wonderful project. And when I was invited to be part of the Disability Channel, it was me. It was just all what I love to do. So good morning. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. And somebody's wishing us a great show from the Disability Channel. We'll certainly have that too. Okay, so if you'd like to place an ad, maybe you'd like to sponsor a show. Maybe you'd like to just say, hey, Laurie, I'd like to sponsor the VIP show on a certain Thursday. Or you want to do a little 30-second clip. It'll kind of look like this. Except it'll be you, your product, your program, your service. Welcome back, everyone. And you're watching The Today Show here on Thursday, our VIP, Very Important People Day. And I would just love to welcome Nadzin DeGagne back to the show. And just let me bring her in from the studio, the backstage. Good morning.
Good morning. How we doing today?
Well, I think we're doing pretty good, girl. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. So I thought it would be really fun today because you have such a terrific history and background. And I'd like to get started with maybe just a little bit about your heritage and your connections to your heritage and how that all came about. I guess you were born there. That's the thing. All right. So just a little about you personally, where you're from, where you grew up, and part of why you chose to do what you did, a youth care worker. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here. So I was born and raised actually in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I have an older brother and a younger brother, so I'm the middle of three and the only girl. So you could say the apple of my father's eyes.
Right.
Yeah, grew up with my parents. They were pretty amazing, pretty involved, very supportive, pretty good family unit. As I mentioned previous, I wanted to be a surgeon. Um, just kind of sitting there watching the surgery shows with my dad, I was very intrigued with the human body, how it worked. When it came down to biology, it was my most favorite subject in the world. Getting to
Wow.
cut open fetal pigs, getting to understand how that worked, learning that frogs have 4 hearts. And when they hibernate, 3 of them shut down. Like, it was just, for me, it was just interesting. It was intriguing. But then life situations started happening. I started going through quite a few things as a kid, and not on my parents' end, but I was 8 when I tried to take my life at first. I was bullied a lot at school. I was pushed around. They called me Butch. I rolled with the boys. And then I ended up losing a friend to suicide. I was around 13 or 14. And just the devastation of that, and not understanding, and I didn't get it. I mean, then again, I tried when I was younger. So in a way, it was just that correlation of like, oh my goodness, he knows the darkness. My parents separated when I was just coming out of high school. So I was 17 when my mom left. And she was still in the picture. Don't get me wrong. They still remained very good friends. And so I moved out to Alberta, got myself into a bit of trouble. I started using drugs, and then I started dealing. And I didn't realize who I was dealing for until the last time we went to do a pickup. The vest went on, and I was like, okay, this is where I need to do something. My parents raised me well. It's just I'm the one that chose the trouble, and I'm the one that made the decisions that I made that weren't supportive of myself moving forward. So I figured, all right, I need to get clean and sober. I need to take care of myself. And in all those trials and tribulations, I noticed that there wasn't really that much help. Not a lot of people were willing to help out. So I moved back home. I came back to Saskatoon, and I decided enough is enough. I need to be a youth care worker. So being in the field is a big reason. I stand up for my youth and the people that need the support, because I didn't have it back then. So that's pretty well why I became the youth care worker, and the credibility that I've been, where I've been, what I've done, and that was just the start. So I was in my field 17 years. I've been clean and sober just as long.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing because you are going to be a guest speaker for us at our Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs next week. And we're going to talk about credentials versus credibility because that came up for you and I on another
Mm-hmm.
broadcast. So that's really cool. Would you say that people that you know in the field where you worked, and we're going to talk about what exactly did you do, but let's talk about the people who were in the field. Would you say that they came to do that work because they had their own trials and tribulations there? Is that what motivates people to take on certain careers?
I would say at least 80% for sure. Either they went through something, or a family member went through something, or they just saw a lot of friends in and out of the system. It is definitely the big motivator. I'll be honest, we don't go in it for the money. The money is not the greatest. And for me, I get that we have to have a living, but the people that come in, I find 80% of them, their heart is definitely in the right place and they definitely want to help and create change. But what I've noticed too is that we have a lot of hurt people helping hurt people. So
Right.
that's not
Right.
always the good part, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So let's give us an example of what would a day in the life of a youth care worker, particularly Nadzin DeGagne, look like?
It
Was
would
every day
depend.
different? Was every day different? Or you were going through the same motions with just a variety of kids? Or
It would be dependent on the job because the job duties were different. So when I
okay,
first started off in the field, I actually worked at Salvation Army Bethany Home, and it was a group home specifically for female youth.
okay,
The second floor were for girls that came in that were pregnant. And at that time, they don't have it anymore. So I know that I can say they used to have an apprehension program. So kids that were taken from their home would come stay
mhm,
with us on the third level, and then we had workers that worked on the third level. So with that, it was literally just day-to-day activities. A new girl would come in, we'd keep them kind of on a blackout period for a couple days just to connect and just to see what the needs and everything are, work with the social workers, work with the POs if there were criminal charges. And then I ended up going to Miwasanoda, and Miwasanoda is actually a halfway house. So I ended up doing a bit of time there working for about a year. I was taking over for a woman's position as she was on maternity leave. So it was pretty well just a year. And then after that, that's when I went to Métis Family and Community Justice Services. And that's when I got my victim offender mediation training. Now, this one was a big one for me because that's when I started going into the court system, and that's when I started building some of those relationships. I didn't have a good name back in the day. I really didn't. I was a fighter. I was angry. I was not doing good. And a lot of people look at me and think, well, Nadzin, like, that's who you were. You're just so kind. You're just so, well, I wasn't always like this, you know? I had to do a lot of hard work and I had to take care of myself. So the reason I talk about the victim offender mediation is that was the job that gave me the opportunity to be the Aboriginal court worker. So I ended up getting trained in that. So every morning we would go in and we would speak with the new arrests in the morning and then go speak with the federal or provincial crown, whoever was representing them, and asking what the plan was moving forward. Were they releasing them? If so, we needed to get a certain address. There were certain conditions that they had to meet before they were released, and it was dependent on the charges that they were coming in with.
right,
So the mediation was pretty well assaults, fraud, and then there was a diversion where we'd work with the CDSA 41, and that's a charge in the criminal code book. It's changed now that marijuana is now legal, but that was with people that were coming with possession under 30 grams. And it would be a first charge. So then we'd work through certain processes, excuse me, and there were certain steps that they had to take in order for us to go back to the courts and ask for the charges to be withdrawn. So the whole point was just to take it out of the court system so that the court system wasn't being tied up so much, and then us workers behind the scene. So when it came to the court worker, that's where I started jumping into youth court. They noticed it was my strength. They noticed that that's what I went to school for. And they just started tossing me in there, and I absolutely loved it. I knew that that's where I belonged. So again, I built relationships with the lawyers. They are fantastic when it comes down to our youth. It's definitely to help them heal. It's definitely to help them move forward. Just to sit there sometimes and hear the stories when our youth are being sentenced, they always ask for a report before to kind of ask the questions of where the youth have been, how they've grown up, what house life is, what education is. And you really start learning the breakdown of the families. And some of it was truly devastating where you have the judges trying to hold back tears. These are our kids. Tough stuff to swallow, tough stuff to listen to, but people need to realize that this is kind of what the world is, and that a lot of us are going through a lot of pain, and a lot of our children are not being taken care of.
right, right.
So yeah, so that was pretty well where I got my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have traffic court actually back then in the provincial courthouse, but they finally separated that. And with being the court worker, they had circuit court. So we would take off to roster one time a month, and actually
Okay.
Beardy's. Beardy's was
Mm-hmm.
another place that we would go. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the circuit court experience.
Mm-hmm.
We would help them with a lot of processes. So whether it was applying for legal aid, if they weren't working, you could go and apply for court appointed counsel. We pretty well just navigated them through the court system. So if somebody ended up missing a court date, then, we go in and we make plans on that. And then actually, that's when I came out to take Reclaim the first time. And then I remember getting a call, and they said, Nadzin, we're starting a new program. It's a pilot program. It's called New Horizons, and it's for youth, and we want you. We have a contract aside specifically with your name on it. That's the
Wow.
first time. Yeah, the first time someone ever reached out and said, hey, kind of like the Army, right? Where they're like, we want you. And they were very adamant about it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing workshops here to reclaim my self-worth. When I get back, absolutely, I'll give you a call. Let's sit down, let's have a conversation and see how it goes. So they had already hired the other two, and they were patiently waiting for me to come in. So they hired me on the spot, and it was really neat too, because Robert McGavin was, he's the executive director of Restorative Circles Initiative. And I actually took my court work or my victim offender mediation training with him. And we've always kind of ran into each other. I sit on a restorative justice board. I was the executive with him a while back. So it's really cool on how it is that we end up meeting down the line and how we're able to support each other. And he was the one that was running this program. So he's like, hey, this needs to happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this was probably one of my most favorite jobs because of the work that we did. With New Horizons, it was a voluntary program. So the youth had to decide whether they wanted to be a part of the process or not. And then obviously working in youth court is completely different than working with adults. So as I mentioned, youth court and adult court actually is therapeutic. And I know a lot of my youth were like, well, man, I got to follow this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And it's like, hey, buddy, yeah, they mentioned the counseling aspect, but I mean, look at all the decisions that you're making. To me, it seems like you're really angry and frustrated with life, and then just kind of having those conversations. The other staff would laugh because my vehicle was full of soccer balls, footballs, hockey sticks, like gloves, everything and anything. It was, how is it that we can get these youth to talk? And for me, it was just simple conversation. We go sit down by, the river and just kick around a ball. Or actually, I had a youth. He was pretty quiet, and you actually ended up meeting him when we ran the workshops. But he always wore his hood, didn't want to be seen, pretty quiet, but you could tell he was angry in how he spoke to his grandpa. He was under the care of his grandfather. So I said, all right, we're going for a drive. I'm going to come get you. I said, we'll go get a coffee. I said, you and I both got some anger to work out. And he's like, okay. So I'll go and pick him up.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. Go and pick him up. And we go down by the river. And I said, okay, we're going to put aside the fact that my title is a worker. Okay. I don't want the title. In front of you right now is a human being that also has been through pain, frustration, and anger. I said, so this is the deal. Soccer's our favorite sport. He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, all right, then grab the soccer ball and let's roll out. So went into the field and I said, this is what we're going to do. Before we kick this soccer ball, we're going to yell out something that we're upset about or that's making us angry. And then we're going to kick this soccer ball so darn hard. I said, if I have to run for it, I don't care. I could use the exercise, kiddo. But that's what we're doing. He thought it was a pretty cool idea. I said, you know what? I'll even start. I said, but today I'm a human, just like you. You're going to learn some things about me. Okay. So yeah, I remember yelling something out and I just kicked that soccer ball and man, he reciprocated it so well. And we just started going back and forth. And finally you see him out of breath and I'm on the ground passed out because I was running for that ball quite a bit. But we sat down there and we debriefed. I said, wow, you've been through a lot of things at your age, and I'm really sorry that those are some of the things you had to face. And that young man and I, that was the day that we bonded, and that was the day that I had him.
Yeah.
So Creator really gave me an amazing gift, and that's being able to connect with people. I can connect with people on all walks of life. I can meet you wherever you're at. I have no judgment whatsoever. I have been through a lot, but I am also here to listen and to learn. My youth have taught me so many things in this life, and they always say, well, you're the worker, you're there to teach them. Oh, my dears, no, it's reciprocated. It's reciprocated. They have definitely taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So the cool part with New Horizons was we could ask the families to partake, to be part of the process. Now, my boss Robert actually came from New Zealand. He was in the military. Can't remember if it was Navy or Army, but he ended up serving about 5 years. And then he became a social worker and ended up learning this process. They call them family group conferences. And he brought that all the way from New Zealand. It has worked out there. It has been phenomenal. And we brought the process here. So it was really neat that it was one thing to work with the youth, but it was also able to encapsulate the whole family and
Mm-hmm.
to work with them. It wasn't just working with our youth. So our youth would say, well, my dad's an alcoholic and whichever. So if the family signed on and dad wanted to be part of the process, it was making sure that mom and dad were getting the supports that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that when the youth came home, we were working more on healthy environments. Education was a big one. I remember bringing my youth to school to sign up and to get in there. Programming, they had conditions that they needed to follow. So with New Horizons, it was pre-sentence. So before they got sentenced, there was certain work and certain things that we do, and then us workers would come forward and we would write up a support letter and saying, look, since this person entered the program, yes, this is where they were, but these are the steps that they've taken, and these are the programs that they've done. They're now back living with mom and dad as opposed to being in the hands of social services, and just to show the work. And then when they go and get sentenced, sometimes it's a little more lenient. And
Yeah.
I like the word, but I don't like the word because it doesn't mean that they're just getting a slap on the wrist. They've already done a lot of that hard work already that the
Right.
courts would have had them do anyways,
Right.
right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And then it was really cool too because with New Horizons, Straight Up was always an organization that I wanted to be with, and they work with active and ex-gang members. So some of our youth that were coming out and some of the youth that we were working with, there was gang affiliation. So that was a resource that we were able to connect them with because not everybody understands the lifestyle. Not everybody understands why it is that we joined. And these are people firsthand. They had mentors that were in and out of jail that started becoming the workers. It's a member driven organization. So we were able to connect a lot of our youth with that. And then New Horizons was only 3 years. It was a pilot program. So we had to say goodbye, and Straight Up picked me up right then and there. That was the place I needed to go. That's
Mm-hmm.
where I wanted to be. And a lot of my youth had already been connected with. So when I came back, it's like Nadzin had never
Mm-hmm.
left. So
Right.
the relationships that I've built with them, I
Right.
was able to carry through.
Awesome. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we have a guest today that has a comment, and I'd like to put the comment up there if it's okay with her. So Cheryl, just comment that it's okay for us to put up your comment because it's quite personal, and I like to just make sure that she's okay with it. So
For
Cheryl,
sure.
just comment that we can put up your post there. And the other thing, while we're waiting for Cheryl to do that, it's okay, she said. All right. Cheryl is someone that I've met online and is associated here in Alberta. We have an organization that helps parents get their children back after they've been
Mm-hmm.
apprehended. And Cheryl's a part of that. I believe she lives in Manitoba. But so she's always stayed connected to us, and she's amazing. Um, and one of my goals, we have 40 workshops for youth, and that's going to be your next assignment, is preserving families. Thank you, Cheryl. your next assignment is going to be to deliver our youth programs, because we have
Mhm.
40 workshops for teens, for youth. You
Yes.
know what one of my goals has always been, and I'm just going to put it out there because maybe this would support, and I've got a couple of people that have asked me about this, but I authored those workshops like 20 years ago, 25 years ago now, and piloted it in an Indigenous community because I knew this community was very stressed, and they allowed me to go in there and do that. And those workshops have been running ever since. But my dream would be, and maybe you can help us with this because of your connections, my dream would be that when a youth is being sentenced, that the judge says, you'll have to do this and this and this, and you are required to enroll in 40 empowerment workshops to support you moving forward.
If I can say, Dr. Laurie, that is something when I did Reclaim and I took those workshops, I came back to Saskatoon and I was no longer a hurt person helping hurt people. So my youth went through some of the programs
I know.
and the judges could recognize. They even asked me in court, Miss DeGagne, what are these workshops all about? Because I hear some are your youth. And I explained a bit at that time saying they're empowerment programs. They said, Your Honor, I even went and took them myself. So you sit here and you wonder why it is that I'm so good at my job is because I went and took my voice back. I said,
Right.
I'm no longer a hurt person. And he just thought, like, Miss DeGagne, it's phenomenal. Keep up the
Wow.
good work. And he'd tell me that every day, keep up the good work. And just to hear my youth speak after, like even when we ran those workshops, Dr. Laurie, some of those youth were going to be sentenced. It was
Yes, I
coming up
know.
to it because that was the big component, and judges recognized, even Crown recognized, lawyers started recognizing.
Well, maybe you and I need to go to Saskatoon for a week and go do some visiting.
Certainly, certainly. But yes, this is very, very powerful. And a lot of my youth are thankful that they had the opportunity to be in those workshops.
So
Yeah.
here's Cheryl's dilemma. Cheryl, we can help you. But we'll just put it up to share with the audience. Cheryl says, I have a worker in Calgary that gave my 15-year-old homeless, addicted youth $100 cash. Posted on TikTok all the meth and vodka she bought. I'm lost in what to do. Wow.
Yeah. Number one, the worker should not have given cash
The worker
at
should
all,
no.
especially with a youth that has addictions. I'm sorry, but we're the best liars. We are the best manipulators. No, that's a big technical foul in my books. Never, ever did I give my youth cash. If they needed something, I would drive them to the store and say, okay, you need underwear? Let's go buy you some.
Yeah.
I mean, the workers could cut checks and stuff for that too, but I mean, it'd take a bit of time, but youth is homeless and they need underwear and socks. You never give them money, and especially an addict. Sorry,
Wow.
you could tell I'm passionate about that, but that is, in my eyes, very wrong. You never
Yeah.
give cash because places take vouchers and they know when they come from social services that they're approved. And they don't even get the change back from the voucher. So let's say the voucher is $100 for hygiene products like shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, underwear, socks, all of that. If they don't spend the $100, they don't get the money back. So if they spend $87.57, let's say, they don't get the remainder of that 100 in cash in their pocket. It just
Wow.
goes back to social services to say they only spent $87.47 of their voucher. Never, ever have workers given out cash. And to an addict, that is the worst thing that you can do. You know darn well where it's going. And that's not a judgment piece. It's just
No.
that's our struggle.
Well, and this leads me to another, and we'll get back to you, Cheryl, shortly here, but this is just triggering because, we've worked a lot in the Indigenous communities, and now they're receiving these land settlements, cows and plows settlements, and every community member gets a check. They hand out 15 grand, 20 grand. And just a month ago, on one of our reserves, they handed out every community member over 18 got a check for $30,000. And the very next day, they found 6 bodies
Mm-hmm.
because they took that money and overdosed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other extreme. So that is, and all we're trying to do is say, hey, if they gave us 10%, so let's say if they had given somebody $30,000, if they had taken 10% off the top and allowed and invested in that individual with us
Mm-hmm.
a year, like that
Mm-hmm.
would make a difference. But to get somebody to hear that, whoa, it's like knocking down brick walls. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Cheryl, Nadzin will be, I'll get you and Nadzin in touch because she said she'd like to speak with you,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
for sure, and
For sure.
exactly. So, Cheryl, I think I probably still have your email if it's the same one that you've always used, and I'll hook you up with Nadzin and talk about maybe what we could do, not only to support your youth, but to support you too, Cheryl, because this is very. I always feel how hurtful all of this is to parents. Parents who actually care, like your parents actually cared, and I know
Yes.
Cheryl does too. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll be in touch with you, Cheryl. So now I have another question for you.
Yes.
Uh, what is the You may not have the specific number, but maybe you do. I don't know. I can't assume anything when it comes to you and the work you've done. So, because this is our Indigenous broadcast this week, what's the ratio of Indigenous youth that you worked with compared to non Indigenous?
It's across the board. The
Okay.
Indigenous have the highest incarceration rates. We have the highest addiction rates. We have the highest trafficking rates. We have the highest rates in everything. 80%, I would say at least, were Indigenous. And we did get funding because of the amount that came through. And that's exactly it. That's the tough part, is working with the youth and trying to get the families on board, because the youth might want to heal and might want to take these steps, but sometimes the parents aren't ready for that. So you have your youth coming out and going back to the same environment that they know. And the amount of work that we're putting in, when I was working for Indian Métis Friendship Center, I had an Indigenous youth come in and they'd come work off hours. And that's what he'd always say: I'm the safest when I'm with you guys. I'm just thinking, all right, trying to get a little more information. Is there gang affiliation here? Just kind of asking questions. But that was his exact point: is no, Nads. They called me Nads for short. He's like, no, Nads. He's like, we come here and we're safe. He says, you always tell us, be kids. It was taken away from us. We get to be kids. We get to be ourselves, have fun and whichever. But you got to remember that we still got to go back to the hood, and we still got to go back to where we come from. He says, whether you guys stand or not, there's still deals that have to be made. There's still us out on the streets taking care of business. He said, so that's just kind of how it goes. Well, that's really sad. And it just breaks my heart, because it's true. They have to go back to that community. And it frustrates me as well, because government puts our youth and our kids in the hood, as we call it in Saskatoon, and they put them in a place where we don't have an opportunity to grow. They keep us down. They keep us in the hood where there's the guns, the drugs, everything. So many trap houses that I know of, the amount of cops that are up and down those streets. Why not put them up in the Hamptons where it's a rich area? Why not put them up? Why can't we do that? We need to help these people rise, and for them to understand that they're worth it. So when it comes down to communities, that's where I get frustrated, is because we're not taught how to work with our money. We all have addictions. We all have trauma. We're all going through the toughest things. So what is it that we buy first? Well, we buy a vehicle, and if it's not good enough, we light it on fire. Whatever, good enough. I got money, I can go get another one. We don't understand the value. And like you say, it goes to the addictions, it goes to the drugs and alcohol, whether it's a dry reserve or not. And sometimes it's our people in power that are the dealers and the
Oh,
people that
yeah.
are hurting our people. So if our elders and our workers aren't willing to go get the help, how are we supposed to be supporting our youth moving forward in our families?
That's
So,
right.
Laurie, a big percentage were Indigenous, a huge
Mhm.
percentage, completely. Yeah.
Well, for me, I've always focused on prevention and aftercare.
Yes.
So now the focus for me is aftercare because, like you said, they send clients off, let's say, to a treatment center, and then they come home or
Mhm.
they're coming out of jail or whatever, and there's nothing,
Yeah.
nothing. And to get that funded is unbelievable because we don't fall into the box
Yes.
of what has been established as insurable services. And it's like Doug mentioned yesterday, let's say you need a massage and it's not covered by your insurance, then you probably won't go get the massage, even
Hmm.
though that may be what you need the most.
Yes.
This is the same with this end of the stick. The thing that we need, we've got tons of treatment centers, we've got tons of, and they're building them every day, recognizing that there's no aftercare.
Hmm.
It's huge.
That's one
And then,
thing that they, oh, sorry.
no, that's okay. And then that's why I love the whole idea of working with the family.
Hmm.
And so my clients, when they come for aftercare, their families are allowed to come and visit, they're allowed to support, because one of the things about being in a treatment center or the other stuff that's going on, the isolation, you're not even allowed to phone home. You're not even, your phone, you lose your phone.
Yeah.
So it's more like a prison. That's what I had a client tell me. It was like a prison, Laurie. I couldn't stay. I had
Yeah.
4 kids at home with their dad. I needed to talk to my kids. So, yes. And the other thing is, there's no point in empowering a youth, and the parents aren't empowered either. So, when I take on a young person, I always suggest the parents enroll in something as well. So then
Yeah.
you can, after the workshops, you don't have to do them together, but after the workshops, then can have meaningful conversations.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
not about
I agree.
protecting the youth. It's about communication and mending fences and forgiveness. And yeah,
Yep. And we
that's
speak of
my soapbox.
aftercare. Yeah.
That's my
You speak
soapbox
of
for the
aftercare, and that's what New Horizons ended up doing. So like I mentioned, we were working pre-charge, so before they got charged. But what they were noticing is that once our youth were sentenced, they were having issues carrying out the conditions that were set before them. So
okay.
New Horizons actually ended up approaching the government and saying, hey, these are the issues at hand. And government actually ended up funding after. So we could have our youth for much longer, which was perfect because here we are just working with the families, just getting our foot in the door. The youth are starting to do great work, investing in themselves, conversations and healing is happening in the family. And then all of a sudden they're sentenced and it's like, okay, see you later. No, I don't agree with that. So it allowed us to work with them past that court date. Okay, you just got sentenced. Now we got to make sure you stay in school. Now we got to make sure that you're going to your counseling appointment. Now we got to make sure. So then it was that aftercare, which was detrimental on that road.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we have the tools, we have the technology, and we have the talent. There's the 3 T's. We have the tools that have been running for years, the technology, and the talent. The people that we have right now on our team are absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud of each and every one of you because everybody is coming with their own certain area of expertise, whether it's finance, whether it's mental health, whether it's education, you name it. I mean, we even have sports people, athletes on our team now, professional athletes who want to help.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there who want to help, but they just didn't have a place to land.
Yeah.
to collaborate, to come together. So we created that. We created that. And that's taken a couple of years, by the way, of just working every day, talking to people, meeting the right people, inviting the right people to the table who want to come and send out that message of self worth, self love,
Mhm.
forgiveness, communication, healing, learning,
Well,
personal
yeah.
development.
And a big reason I stepped away was because it's fighting the government and fighting all of that just to be heard. I mean, we know that these educational workshops that you have, Lori, we know that they work. We
Mm-hmm.
know. I am proof. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those workshops. I'd have ended it a long time ago, and you and I both know that. So it does work, and it's really tough to explain to people the power that is held in this and the opportunity of giving us permission to move forward and finding our value and our worth. You know, one of my youth from New Horizons, I had connected with straight up, and I had worked with him for 6 years, and he was charged with quite a murder pretty well. There were a couple guys around, and when I met with him, I said, look, you can't tell me whether you did it or you didn't. That's not on me. That's between you and your lawyer, and when it comes to sentencing. I said, but you have to remember whether you pulled the trigger, whether you were sitting in the basement and you were there, it doesn't matter what part it was that was played, but there is a life to honor. You took away someone's brother, someone's son, someone's uncle. And I just explained these things. I said, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I see pain and trauma and that you've been through a lot of things. I said, so
Mm-hmm.
I still see your value and worth.
Mm-hmm.
And the look that he gave me, and
Mm-hmm.
him and I became like this. And that's another reason I had to walk away, is because when he was released, finally, after doing a couple years, he did everything Dr. Laurie, like jumped every hoop. He took it serious and he knew, all right, I need to get my schooling. I have a life to honor, is what he'd tell me. I need to do my sentence and carry out my time because I have a life to honor. And then he'd list all these things. And at the end of it, he would say, I have a life to honor. Now the sad part is when he was released, unfortunately it was gang affiliation. I had him connected with straight up, and not even a month later he was shot and murdered.
Wow.
So I had had enough. I mean, I don't want to cry, but I connect a lot with these youth, and that was 6 years of working with this young man.
Mm-hmm.
Phone call saying, hey Nads, I'm having a bad day, I need to laugh. And I'm like, and you're calling me? And we just giggle. Like, we would just laugh, but he'd always end his phone call with, hey, Nads. And I'd be like, yeah, buddy, nobody loves me as much as I love you.
Oh,
And it would
wow.
just hit, you know, because I
Mm-hmm.
sit there and I listen. I
Mm-hmm.
see people for people. So it was one of those where I really had to step away. It broke my heart. It devastated me. And then I lost another youth to cancer, and I got really close with her and her family because that's just who I am as a person. It
Right.
was the last one I was telling you there, where they have a coffee mug and a place for me to sit.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had to pull myself away because these are kids, right? And I really had to think about how I was going to move forward, because we talk about that aftercare, and I know these workshops help. And any youth that I've worked with or family I knew could benefit from this, and I could have just understood how far these families would be making it. So it's a big reason I left and came to join your team.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in what we do, and I know I have the credibility, and I'm still full of fire. But now it's knocking down different doors, and now that I have a voice, I'm ready to fight for that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
being on a different platform and not being underneath the thumb of the government, where
Mm-hmm.
we had so many red tape. And yeah.
Well, one of the biggest challenges right now is that within our Indigenous communities, they're being forced, and I like to educate the public about what's going on there because we all have judgments and perceptions of what we think is happening. But for example, if I there's only certain things that get funded, and those certain things, those certain support systems, uh, are in the box ways of, conventional ways of doing things. So if you're a registered psychologist, they'll pay for that. If you're a registered psychiatrist, they'll pay for that. If you want to go to detox, they'll pay for that. But let's say, and I had two dads out of the same community want their kids to come here to see me for aftercare, a 19-year-old girl and 23-year-old woman. And you cannot believe what they've had to go through. They still, it hasn't happened yet, to have that covered. And what that means is that I don't have a right as an Indigenous parent to send my kids to where I know they can get the help and have it covered. That's the message.
Mm-hmm. And then
Okay?
again, they're taking away the voice. Yeah.
Well, the voice, not only that, there's money, that money belongs to the people for their care. And so if this is what I would like to see happen for my family member for care, then that should be covered. And that's the battle that they're fighting right now. And I'm hoping that we win that, because we're all working very hard to make that happen.
Completely in this. Yep.
Yeah, like if they want to take their son to maybe some kind of camp down in Tennessee to live in the mountains for a week, they wouldn't cover it, even though that's what maybe that particular youth needs. So the voice is not there. It's not being honored. It's not being respected in what I want for my family.
Yeah.
And we have very strong Indigenous men and women right now fighting tooth and nail for their families.
For sure. And you had spoken about the Indigenous community in Nova Scotia. I can't remember what it was called.
Elsipogtuk.
That's it. Thank you very much. You had mentioned that you went in and you worked with 72 youth, and 14 members came in to help out. And then you spoke of how you ended up missing the place 5 times because it's not even the same place anymore. And
No.
to sit here and realize that it was those youth that you went in and did these workshops with that created that. And that's the ripple effect.
I know.
But that's the point. If people could just see that it's not us going in and trying to take, we're going in to give the tools so we can empower the community members and the parents to step up and to start healing their own community.
That's right.
And that's all we need is to get in there. I mean, why are we not investing our time in this? We'll go to counselors, we'll journal, we'll take off and go to this retreat for 5 or 6 days. That, okay, I'm not saying that we're not learning anything, but it's not getting to the core. We keep having that Band-Aid fix. And for me, I get frustrated. Let's rip that darn Band-Aid off. And this is what this allows us to do. We get to the nitty-gritties. We get down to everything that happened to us in life, every situation, every decision we made, where it was that we lost our value and our worth. And we literally get to reclaim that. Yeah. We get to go in there and say, no longer is this acceptable. I am worth it. I have a lot of value. So yeah, like I get worked up because this is, we have something here.
Oh yeah.
So you either want to do something about it or you don't.
Yeah. And 25 years ago, I didn't have the track record. We didn't have the credibility. We didn't have it because we were just getting started. But that community, Elsipogtuk, New Brunswick, they said, come on in. And the ink was not even dry on the paper from my first workshops, right? Now, 25 years later, and thousands of people have passed through the doors, and lots of Indigenous community members, and they're still fighting over it, that it's, somebody from the outside coming in. No, I'm on the inside, man. I'm on the inside track.
Yeah.
And I like that that T-shirt that that sexy cowboy. What's his name? Sam Elliott.
Yes.
He was on a post, and he had a T-shirt, and it said on the T-shirt, there was a nice native piece of art on the T-shirt, and then it said, "I may not be as white as I look."
I love that. I love that. And
right?
it's so true.
Yeah,
It's,
who cares? Who cares? It
yeah,
doesn't matter. It should be if you've got the tools to save my kid, what color, what difference what color I'm in,
exactly.
right? Like that just doesn't make.
Exactly.
And I've had that said to me. I find it to be very disrespectful, actually.
Well, we have some Indigenous people out there that are pretty well full blood, but they have fair skin, bright blue eyes, you
Yeah,
know?
status, yes,
Why do I have to sit here and tell you and argue that I'm Indigenous?
yeah,
Can we just put that aside? Because I'm here to serve you. I'm here to walk with you. I am one of you.
right.
My skin might not be as dark as yours, but I walk that red road. I speak to my creator. I smudge every morning. I understand the significance. You know, I have my ribbon skirt and I wear it in honor. I know
Hmm.
what it stands for. I'm here and I know some of the teachings and I'm walking alongside with you. So why we have to sit here and argue about how indigenous I am, how much blood I have? Hey,
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
Algonquin. I come from Quebec, and that is one of the most proudest things that I get to have leave these
Yeah,
lips. I am Algonquin, and I am so darn proud of that. So
exactly.
instead of judging, let's meet face to face, soul to soul,
Hmm.
human to human. We're here to serve, we're here to love, and we're here to help. It's not about
Absolutely.
taking anything away from you guys. It's about giving you guys everything that you need so then
Hmm.
you can go and serve and empower.
That's right.
Like I said, it's not our fault what happened to us. It is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal. And
That's
we're
right.
not here to mess around. We have
No,
something that works. So we're
exactly.
here to help.
Like somebody said to me, it was one of my guests, actually, and Dr. Patricia Crane, and I love her. And she said, you know how people want to take an onion, they compare their life to an onion. So you get the first layer peeled off, and then you get the second layer, and then the skin on the onion gets really thin and it's really hard to peel. You know, the closer
Mhm.
you get to the pain, right, it's harder to heal. She said, I prefer using avocados.
Right
Cut,
on.
cut, cut, and there's the pit,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because you
Yes.
see, it's not about the addiction. They're all tied up in treating the addiction.
No.
What we work on is why do you have the addiction in the first place?
Well,
And
and they know that even
and
going in.
yeah,
They have the counselors, they have the psychologists, and it's like, huh, why are you drinking? But then they're only there for the 7 days when it's detox, and then treatment is possibly 14 to 21 days. Some places are 3 months, but you're not hitting anything with them being there 2 weeks. You're just starting to have the conversation of what did you go through in life? What
yeah,
was life like
exactly.
growing up? And
Yeah,
then you're throwing them back into the environment that is not supportive. And you wonder why it is that we go back to the drugs and why we go back to drinking.
hmm,
Because it's to numb what's going on inside here. And if you're not going to deal with what's inside here, guess what?
you
We're
got
going
to
to go
keep
out there and we're going to hurt ourselves in every way and darn way that we know how, or that we don't even know that we're doing.
exactly. So
How are we
listen,
supposed to know different?
I know. You know, our time is up practically.
Oh my goodness, again, hey? We
Yeah,
just talk
no,
and talk.
we talk, yeah. And
Oh,
but we're being very aggressive right now because we're working on some systems and places and ways to bypass what's ever holding that process up because
mhm.
uh, the excuses are unbelievable and they're no longer acceptable to me. In
Me
the mean,
neither.
in the meantime, we've got children dying on the streets. We've got little kids hanging themselves. Like, you think this is okay? No, this is not,
No,
right?
no.
And
And
that's
like I
across
said,
the
it's,
board. That's
yep,
across the board. That's nothing to do with just our indigenous communities. It's across the board.
completely.
Totally.
Completely. And it's not that we want to die, it's just we want the pain to stop. But you
Yeah.
know what? The workshops and programs and services that we offer are a quarter of what a funeral costs.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll pay the 5, 10, $15,000, but we're 5% of that to give you the tools for them to become
Yeah.
something of themselves and to realize their potential and to realize that they're here with gifts and talents and
That's
to
right.
go out and use those things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's where we get frustrated, is because we know what we have works, but because we don't fit in a box. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to be in the box because I realized in the box wasn't working for people. Okay, my girl, we have no time left, maybe a minute or two, just to say thank you for being here to our viewers today. We've had some live viewers with us today. Cheryl, email me and contact us, and I'll get you right next to Nadzin right away.
Yes.
The Recovery Summit this weekend. If you don't have your ticket, I'm just going to pop that up here, Nadzin, for a second. Just contact me, text me, whatever, if you want a ticket and come and listen to some very inspirational stories of others. Nadzin's going to be speaking also on Friday, I believe. So get your ticket. And I guess that's our show for today. I'll be back on Monday with my special guest, Sabine Becker, an amazing woman. She was one of the 20,000 thalidomide babies that were born back in the 60s. And thalidomide was a drug that was given to pregnant women to help with morning sickness, and it had not been tested properly. And there you have all these beautiful babies born with little arms and no legs and all kinds of things. So, Sabine has a powerful story to share about how she overcame that. And she even puts her makeup on with her feet. Can you believe it?
Right on.
Yeah. And she drives a car that's not been modified. She drives a regular vehicle. She's amazing. So that's Monday. This time next week, June 6th, is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So we are going to feature a panel of veterans next Thursday. So you'll want to join that and meet some of these amazing men and women who served our country. I don't know. We're just doing all kinds of fun stuff, and I'm just loving it. So have a great day. Thank you, Nadzin, so much for being here and always willing to step up and share your stories and your experience. And I'm so honored to have you as our youth expert. I mean, really, what better person could we have? All right, ladies and gentlemen, talk to you later. All right.
So maybe it's a good thing to get worked up like that.
Oh, what? Do you know who I'm going to send this to?
Who's that?
I'm going to send it to Curtis and to Jamie.
Yes.
And to Chief Kelly and to Iva LaFond, the Director of Health. Sir, I'm sending this out to Muskeg right after we're done here.
Yes. Completely. Yeah, I got worked up, but in a good way. And I think people can feel that
passion.
Ooh, look at the red.
I know.
You know, I'm really kind of enjoying this. A little feisty like the redhead might just kind of suit me.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm bringing your phone up to you, hon.
Okay, just throw it on the table, and I've got some emails to do, and I'm going to get this converted to an MP4, and then I'm going to email it out to them.
Perfect. Yes, girl. Absolutely. They need to have people that have been there and are serving the communities and what the issues are. So, yeah, send it to them. That's our ammo.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we'll chat with you later, sweetheart.
Okay, bye.
Bye.